You're saying, wait a second, I want to give my retirement plan this $100,000 to my kids. And the government says, oh no. You don't do that. Starting at 70 and a half, we're going to start making you take money out of your plan. Money you didn't want to take out. We're going to make you take money out, and we're going to make you pay tax on it.
Markets go up and markets go down. It's hard to predict anything in the modern world, yet you are ultimately responsible for your livelihood, investments, and retirement. Where do you find the answers? Joshua Melbourne, author, TV host, and the founder and CEO of an independent financial services firm that specializes in retirement income planning and is licensed in all 50 states and has received numerous industry awards, will help you navigate the modern world's rough waters. Join us now on Mastering Your Money, Ways to Maximize Your Income.
Hello, I'm Joshua Melberg, and welcome to Mastering Your Money, the show where each week we explore strategies that can add security and enjoyment to your retirement. Whether you're preparing for your future retirement or you've already retired, you need to master your money. And by doing this, it's all about the net. Net of fees, net of taxes, and net of inflation. Master these and you have more fun, more time, and more money. The primary objective for your retirement savings is to provide you the income you need as long as you live. But what if you don't need that IRA? What if you don't need that 401k? Well, that's where Dan Nagito comes in. If you don't need a lifetime income stream off that IRA, maybe this money is for your children, maybe it's for your grandchildren, or maybe it's for your favorite charity. With the guest this week, we'll show you the strategies accomplished by these objectives. His name is Daniel Nagito. He's a certified financial planner and the author of the book, The Power of Leveraging the Charitable Remainder Trust. Dan, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Josh. Good to be here.
So tell us about the power of the Charitable Remainder Trust. How does it work? What is a Charitable Remainder Trust?
Well, the Charitable Remainder Trust, which has been around forever. I mean, we're not talking about something I invented on the plane coming over here today. The Charitable Remainder Trust has been around since 1969. It's old-time tax code, and it has a very valuable part of a financial plan. But one of the main things I like to talk about is that people think of Charitable Remainder Trust, charities, as being a philanthropist.
Okay.
And I use the phrase in the book, accidental philanthropy. Are you an accidental philanthropist?
How's that possible?
Well, you know, everybody knows who the philanthropists are.
Right.
They see their names on the side of buildings. Mm-hmm. They see them on wings of hospitals. They've gone to colleges and dorms, and everything's named after the philanthropist. You know, they write the checks. Right. They get the accolades. Mm-hmm. They're the people you know. But we're all philanthropists. We're just accidental philanthropists. We're letting someone else do our philanthropy for us. And those people are your elected officials, the congressmen. You know, you're a philanthropist by simply paying your taxes. Okay. When you pay your taxes, you let the guys in Washington and women in Washington decide where your money goes. And I guarantee you it's not where you want it to go.
So you're saying you have some control of where those dollars go.
Sure. You know, you can make a choice over how you spend your tax dollars. Now, you can't do it 100% of the time, but for a lot of your money, when you see what the government is going to do with your IRA, for example, you're going to want to do something about it. And a Charitable Remainder Trust gives you a great facility to do something about it.
Okay, so how does this work? I've heard a lot of things where you give money to a charity, mm-hmm. But what if you still want that money, and how does the tax deduction work, and do you lose control of the money?
Okay, so a Charitable Remainder Trust, think of a Charitable Remainder Trust as a big, irrevocable, tax-sheltered box. Okay. And into that box, you can transfer stocks, bonds, real estate, cash. You could transfer into it just about anything you want, appreciated property. Mm-hmm. When it goes into the box, it ain't never coming out. Okay. It's going to go to charity someday. That's the deal.
So if you put in $100,000, $500,000 in this Charitable Remainder Trust, it will still benefit you while you're living somehow, some way, but you can't ever just reach back in and pull back. It's irrevocable, it's irreversible.
Right. Your deal is that you're going to say, I'm going to put money aside today that's going to go to charity in the future. How far in the future? Could be at the end of your life, could be at the end of your life and your wife's life or your spouse's life, or it could be at the end of a period of years. It could be at the end of 10 years or 12 years.
So this could be for like people that basically say, I have enough money for my lifestyle needs. I'm confident my Social Security, the pensions, the money that I'm going to live off of, I have enough there. but I know what's left is going to go somewhere. Do I want it to go to the IRS, or do I want it to go to, I choose where it goes?
That's right. And so, I mean, when you think about all the goofy things that Congress has done, this was one of the brilliant things they did. 1969, they came out with the Tax Act of 1969. That created a vehicle that said to people, look, put your asset into this trust. If it's appreciated in value, instead of paying capital gains tax, we'll let the trust sell it and you won't pay any capital gains tax.
Okay, so let me make sure I understand this. You own Exxon stock and you put in $10,000 in there 30 years ago. That $10,000 is now worth $200,000. But if you sell that $200,000, you pay a big piece of tax to the IRS for long-term capital gains when you sell that, and you could have state tax on top of that.
Right.
So if you're in this situation where you don't necessarily need this, the purpose of this money is basically for somebody else, your grandchildren or your potential favorite charity.
Right.
There's a way that you can potentially sell that asset and not have to pay taxes on the capital gain?
Oh, listen to this. This is the coolest thing Congress ever did. I'm sure they did something more cool than this, but not to me anyway. You put your asset into this trust. You put the Exxon stock into the trust. The trust sells the stock.
So this could be real estate, it could be stock, it could be an asset that appreciates.
We'll stay with your Exxon stock for sure. No capital gains tax on that sale. And there's a simple math we do. It's called more equals more. If I take $200,000 and I got to pay $50,000 of that in capital gains tax, I got $150 left. If I have $200,000, I pay zero. I got $200,000 left.
That makes sense.
More equals more. I can get more income. So now I've got that asset in the trust. I get cash flow off of that asset for the rest of my life or for a period of years. But basically, you're going to get an increased cash flow because you have more money.
But the key is you cannot sell that asset before it goes in the trust.
Oh,
right?
no,
because if you do that and you say, hey, I want that
Right.
charitable remainder trust,
Right.
you might get a double hit.
Right. And then at the end of that period of time, and I like to use terms trust because I like you to see your philanthropy in motion. That asset's going to go to charity. Now this is a very, 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 very important thing we're talking about here. You have to have it in your heart to give to charity. You got to want to give something to charity. But think about our viewers. Think about the people who are on boards of hospitals, boards of their colleges, WISE, the Boys Club. I mean, everybody loves something. So you can think of those as the charitable recipients. So you're going to create a charitable legacy with this money. But we're not done. We're going to avoid capital gains. We're going to get an increased income. And because you're so smart, you're going to get an income tax deduction today for what you plan on doing 10 years from now or 20 years from now or when you die. So it's not a full 100% of the value, but 30, 35, 25% of whatever you put in is going to be an income tax deduction that you can use against your taxes right now. And if you can't use it all up, you can carry it forward for a few years.
You know, that's very interesting. There's a lot of people that make a lot of income in 1 year. And if you make all this income in 1 year, you could pay up to half of it right back to the IRS. And that doesn't make people very happy. And sometimes it's not a choice. Sometimes it's a sell of a product or big lump sum check from a source of income.
Right.
And so you're saying that people could also potentially offset those taxes that year if they did a charitable remainder trust before the end of the year.
Oh, yeah. And think about who the charities can be, too. You know, you don't have to name, you can name anybody, any bona fide 501c3 organization as your charitable, what's called a remainder man, your charitable beneficiary. But, you could also create your own private family foundation. You could name...
Are you thinking like for your pets, if you want to make sure your dog goes to heaven?
Well, if you want to create the Melberg Family Foundation, and you're on the board, and your kids are on the board, and someday the grandchildren will be on the board.
But it has to be a legitimate charity that you care about, that you want to leave to. It can't just be anything. And
the foundation's got to jump through a lot of hoops to get that. But listen, think about that. You're going to send money that you would be going to the Congress to give out on your behalf. That money's going to recycle back into your own family foundation, and you're going to be able to teach philanthropy for generations, and you stay in the game. You're giving grants and gifts every year out of money that was going to go to the government in taxes.
Now, most people, when they think about charitable remainder trusts, are going to leave all this money to a charity and put their name in the building. I don't know about you, but the first thing that comes to my mind is I must have have to have a lot of money or this doesn't apply to me. Is that true?
Well, it used to be like that back in the day. Now things have been so streamlined and modified, and the answer is no. I'm saying you can do these things, and people react differently when I say this, but I think $100,000 used to be, you shouldn't be talking about these things at a $500,000 or $1 million. Not so. Okay. It all has to do with what you're paying. If you have the administration done right, and believe me, the IRS has provided a lot of the forms and documentation to do these things. You can do this at a $100,000 level, and it's worth it.
Okay, so what are some of the highest taxes in the land? I know there's two types of money. There's non-IRA money, non-qualified money, which you've already paid taxes on. That's typically money that's in your, checking accounts, or you pay taxes on the earnings as it makes from moving forward. Then there's qualified money, also known kind of like as 401k, IRA, and one's taxed higher if you cash it in versus the other one, typically.
Well, I think the best example of accidental philanthropy, bar none, is what happens in their qualified retirement account. And let me tell you something, that's not going to change anytime soon, because I was doing some research for this, for another book that I'm working on right now. Right now there are like $27 trillion in qualified retirement money. And of that $27 trillion, almost 10 of it, well actually it's over 10 now, $10 trillion are in 401ks, 403bs, and IRAs. That am a lot of money.
That's a lot of money, especially when your deficit is close to $18 trillion.
That's exactly
right. Do the math. Where's that money going to pay the taxes for,
So
right?
if you think the government's going to say, you know what, we're going to change the taxation on that, no, you're going to get killed when you take money out of your IRA. That's the thing that drives me nuts. IRAs are such a great deal going in. Oh, come on, we're not paying tax on that money. They're building tax deferred. So you get killed coming out.
You got a great example here of the tax impact of an IRA. Can you just kind of walk us through who gets the lion's share and how does that work? Because now we're talking about if you don't need this money, the purpose of this money truly is you want to leave it to a charity that you love. And that's where the sweet spot comes in. If you don't have a charity you don't love and you need this money for you, or you want to maximize it to your kids, then maybe a charitable or merit trust may not be the sweet spot.
Yeah, I would agree with that, absolutely. This chart shows a 60-year-old person who's got money in an IRA and with a life expectancy to age 85. You got to have some assumptions in here. So I had a 60-year-old who dies at age 85 and is only earning 5% on his money. So I think everything's kind of fair there. And he wants to transfer. He or she has looked at their IRA and they said, okay, here's $100,000 part of my IRA. It could be $1 million IRA with a $100,000 portion. Here's $100,000 I'd like to see to go to my kids or my grandkids, someone other than the government. Well, here's what happens. At $100,000, they between now and the day they die, starting at age 70 and a half, these involuntary required minimum distributions are the most absurd, awful things that would happen to your retirement plan, because you're saying, wait a second, I want to give my retirement plan this $100,000 to my kids. And the government says, oh, no. You don't do that. Starting at 70 and a half, we're going to start making you take money out of your plan. Money you didn't want to take out. We're going to make you take money out, and we're going to make you pay tax on it.
So the great thing of a qualified plan or money that grows tax sheltered, tax deferred, is you don't pay taxes while it grows. You get interest on your principal, interest on your interest, and interest what you normally pay to Uncle Sam, which is a great benefit as long as it grows deferred. However, the IRS wants to get paid at some point, and at age 70 and a half, you're required to start taking required mandatory distributions out. Now, what that is exactly, it's a calculation depending on your age. Right. It might start off just under 4% per year you have to take out. By the time you're 85, you might have to take out closer to 8-9% a year. Right. So they want to force you to spend that IRA down. And whether you want to or not, you have to take that money out. Now, here's the challenge. The challenge is if you don't need that money, that extra dollars that you're forced to take out can cause you to pay taxes on Social Security. Or if you're already paying taxes on Social Security, you surpass another threshold, those dollars at 70 and a half can cause you to pay additional taxes on your Medicare, and those Medicare deductions are pulled directly out of your Social Security check.
That's a great
point. So the concept is, okay, the purpose of this money is for a charity, and I want to maximize it instead of having a good portion go to the IRS. I want to be able to get a benefit now while I'm living, but also be able to pass it on to my charity down the road.
That's perfect. I just need to cover one other quick thing, and that is there's another tax when you die on the balance. So you pay required minimum distributions from 70 to 85, and then you die. The rest of it's taxable.
So if it goes to your like son or daughter or grandchild, they'll have to pay ordinary income tax on their tax bracket at that point.
Yeah.
So how would that help? Let's say you have an IRA, and how would this work with the charitable remainder trust?
Let me just show you that on this IRA, just while we're talking about this, at $100,000, by the time you hit age 85, the government has taken $104,000, and your kids get $106,000. You're a 50-50 partner with the government on your own IRA, and charity's gotten nothing.
So you're saying that's the taxes that they collect is about $104,000 off $100 because you've had to take required mandatory distributions. And then you're assuming a rate of return. And then what's left for your loved ones is $106,000, and then they have to pay taxes again on that portion.
Well, the $106,000 is what's net, like you say, net after they've paid the taxes upon death. Bottom line is the bottom line. The bottom line is the government got half and you got half.
Got it.
So, when you look at a charitable remainder trust, what happens is, like I said before, we take that asset, move it from what's subject to accidental philanthropy, and move it into purposeful philanthropy, a charitable remainder trust, something that's going to go to charity someday.
Sure.
That asset can be a portion of your IRA.
So there's two types of money you can potentially use. Okay, one example, you said, okay, it's non-IRA money, it has a capital gain, and you can move it into the trust and not pay taxes, and when it sells within the trust, you don't pay taxes, and you get a tax deduction.
Right.
However, if you take IRA money, and in order to get into the charitable remainder trust, you would have to pull the money out,
right,
pay taxes on the $100,000 up front,
right,
then take the $100,000 and put it into the charitable remainder trust.
You got it.
Then what happens?
You get a tax deduction for putting it into the charitable remainder trust.
Okay.
And the tax deduction offsets the lump sum tax you have to pay when you take out of the IRA. So, for example, if I would normally pay, 35% tax bracket, $35,000, right?
Sure.
Instead, I'm going to drop it into my charitable remainder trust. I'm going to do a 10-year trust. That's going to give me a tax deduction on $100,000. I'm going to get a tax deduction of about 70-ish. So I'm going to have tax savings so that my 35 is going to become 18. In other words, you were able to pay 18% tax instead of 35% tax.
Okay, so in this example, if you just cash it in, normally you'd have to pay 35 cents on the dollar goes to the IRS. Let's say that's the marginal tax bracket, state, federal. But because that tax deduction, it could bring you at an 18% effective rate that you have to pay to the tax from the IRS, even though you cashed in that IRA.
Right.
Now, what are the benefits to you while you're living, and what goes to the charity?
The benefits to you while you're living is that's it. Because remember, this is money that was in your retirement plan that you knew you weren't going to use, but you wanted to get to your kids.
Got it.
So what we're going to do is we're going to put that money into charitable remainder trust, get a tax deduction, stop the bleeding on required minimum distributions.
Okay.
And then we're going to use that cash flow from that trust to do something for your children.
Okay, so now what you're talking about is if you don't want to disinherit the kids.
Right.
How do you still leave money to the charity, and how do you leave a benefit for your loved ones?
Right.
At the same time, you're not forced to take those required mandatory distributions out of the IRA.
Yeah. So basically, what happens is we take that $100,000. It's sitting into the charitable remainder trust. I've reduced my taxation from what's going to be $104,000 to now to $18,000, and now I got cash flow coming out of that charitable remainder trust. And let's say we're only doing this for 10 years. Okay. With that cash flow, I have a choice. I could do one of two things. I can either buy a life insurance policy on me, and then I would replace the value of the trust that goes to charity to the kids when I die. And
so it's tax-free
nice.
Versus taxable on the IRA.
Right. So what I'm doing is I'm taking tax-destroyed money, and I'm going to give it to charity at full value, and then I'm going to replace it 100% to my children tax-free by just buying life insurance with that cash flow. That's one option.
Okay.
That'll work with either an individual policy or these popular second to die policies. Again, I don't want to get too much detail, but the fact of the matter is you can really leverage, hence the name of the book, The Power of Leveraging Your Charitable Remainder Trust. You can leverage that deposit to do two really fantastic things. Give a gift to charity, give it back to your kids tax-free. That is very powerful.
So I can kind of see a couple potential benefits. Now, this is for somebody that has a charitable intent, but you don't want to necessarily cut out your kids. You don't want to take required mandatory distributions out of your IRA. You know you have to pay taxes on that IRA, but because you're able to take that IRA, cash it in, put it into the charitable remainder trust, the tax deduction on the charitable remainder trust, you're effectively cutting the taxes at a lower rate. So you still have to pay taxes to the IRS, but you're minimizing the taxes to the IRS. But over like a 10-year period, that trust can kick out income.
Right.
And that income could buy a tax-free policy for your heirs, and you can still leave the full value to the charity? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, whatever remains in a trust, charitable remainder.
Now, are these expensive? Or, what are the costs of?
You know what? They're really not that expensive. And the reason I say that is, again, this has evolved. Again, it's great tax law, black and white. We're not anywhere in any gray areas here. But it's evolved so much that the IRS has actually provided you. You go on irs.gov and you can print out the documents to do this. And the accounting, the compliance accounting, is relatively simple because it's you just have to account for where your accountant can do it for sure. But I would say that you could probably do it too. Bottom line is, no, it's not that expensive. It's not that expensive to set up at all.
What other ways have you been able to see how it can leverage the benefit? What if your sole intent say, you know what, I love the tax deduction now. I like it but I don't really need a huge tax deduction. What kind of situations have you said, I just want to really maximize this benefit to the charity? How would you set that up in the trust?
Well, you can use the cash flow from the trust. You could use that, number of ways. One, the more cash flow you take out of the trust, the lower your tax deduction. So if you reduce your cash flow to only 5%, which is the lowest you're allowed to, then you're going to build up the least amount coming out of the trust, most amount is going to go to charity.
Got it.
You can take that cash flow and you can make that annual gifts to charity. You can do your annual giving to charity as well.
So in a way you can do it while you're living, but also leave a good portion to the charity at the same time.
Yeah.
Now, do you have the ability to tell the trust what you want the charity to do with that money?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You can be very specific in your trust. These are great, man. This is really great stuff. You can say, I'm going to give this to XYZ College to endow its share in English. You can be very, very, very specific to its
So it doesn't
use.
have to be one. You can split it up between like a church or a college or.
And you can change the charities up until the day the trust terminates. So you can take one charity out and put another one in.
It seems like the old ones, it was irreversible. You can't change anything, and you couldn't even change the charity in play.
Well, the old tax law still allowed you to change it, but it had an inclusion ratio back into your estate, which doesn't play anymore. So, man, these things are, for an irrevocable trust, they're pretty flexible.
That makes sense.
But the bottom line is, you have control. You can make the decision. Do I want to give my money to taxes and let the government give it away on my behalf? Or do I want to create a philanthropic trust that's going to give the money to where I want it to go and replace it back to my kids at the same time?
That's a different way of looking at it because it is going to go somewhere. We're kind of, in a way, renting these assets as long as we're here on the earth. And then once we're gone, it's going to go somewhere. Right. So we have the ability, do we want a larger dollar amount to go to the people we care about or a smaller dollar amount? So Dan, thank you so much for sharing that with us. At the end of the day, you have control of your finances. You have control of your monies. And if you're tax-wise, a charitable remainder trust, and you have an intent to leave money to your favorite charity, a charitable remainder trust could be a great vehicle to transfer and leverage tax-free money. And here's some final thoughts. Under the right circumstances, a charitable remainder trust can allow for you to support your favorite charity, while gaining more control over the taxes you and your family might otherwise pay. Here are 3 things to keep in consideration if you want to maximize the benefits to your legacy. 1, first, the primary purpose of your retirement savings must be to provide more lifetime income needs. Don't make the mistake of giving money that you depend on to live off of. Secondly, if you are certain you have more savings than needed and you want to maximize those benefits to your charity, consider using your retirement monies, the monies in your IRAs, the monies in your 401ks, because a charitable remainder trust can offset the taxes and create less tax liability. And third, make sure, and before you take any action, you get proper legal advice, you get proper tax advice from qualified professionals. Remember, it's all about the net of fees, net of taxes, and net of inflation. Master these and you have more fun, more time, and more money. I wish you tremendous success, and I'll see you next time. Now go and master your money.